Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And today I want to just ask you a question. Do you know what is actually standing between you and your desired health or weight loss goal? Not what you think might be in the way, but what is actually in the way. Not what the internet or social media says is in the way, but what is actually specifically in your way right now, in your life, in your body, in your habits, in your history, in your relationship with food. The reason I ask this question is because I've found that many people actually don't know. And that's not a criticism, it's just the truth. It's just what I see. And if you are stuck on your journey, you're stuck understanding what is standing between you and your goal, then I want to offer you a possible confronting reality is that you might be working on the wrong thing. You might be focused on the wrong thing. You might be focused on diet, you might be focused on exercise, and you might not be seeing the very thing that is standing between you and the goal. And what I see from many people that I speak to is that most people are not stuck because they're not trying hard enough. When people come to this world of plant-based eating, they're usually very intentional. They put a lot of effort into changing their diet, changing what they're eating, and so they are being very intentional anyway. But where they are stuck is because they're focused on something that is not actually standing between them and the goal. And because they can't see it, because that gap is so invisible to them, they keep working harder and harder on the things that are not actually the issue. And then they wonder why nothing changes. And the data on this is also very, very sobering. Research consistently shows that the majority of people who lose weight regain it again within 2 to 5 years. Some studies put that figure as high as 80%. And the common explanation is that people just don't stick to what they know, that they lack discipline or motivation. But I think there is a different explanation to this. And I think that most people were not necessarily working on the right thing in the first place, or they were missing something. They were missing a piece of the puzzle on the journey. And because that thing never got resolved, once they got to the goal, old habits come back and then that weight comes back on. So most people are addressing food and exercise, of course, but they might leave untouched things like automatic eating or mindless eating habits, not aware that they're just overeating every single day, putting too much food into their body. They might not be addressing things like their relationship with food, why they're eating, how they might be using food to numb emotions or calm down stress. They might not be addressing things like their sleeping habits or possibly their belief systems that are running underneath everything that they do. And these are some of the things that quietly determine the results that everybody gets. And here is what this means in real practice. So you can spend months or years doing everything that you've been told to do. You can eat exactly what you know to do, like exactly what somebody has told you to do. You can be moving your body, you can be tracking and measuring and trying everything. And if the thing that is actually standing in your way has not been identified and addressed, you will keep spinning your wheels. Not because you're not capable, but because you're not actually solving the right problem. So that's what today is about. It is about closing that gap. Not the one that you think exists, the one that actually exists. Because here's what I see. Most of us just trying to solve a problem that we can't actually see. We can't see it because we're too close to it. And our blind spots are, by very definition, invisible to us. And those patterns that are holding us back are so familiar. They're so unconscious to us. They're so woven into the fabric of our everyday lives that we've stopped noticing them. We just don't see them anymore. And so we keep focusing on the things that we think are the problem, be it the what we're eating, be it the exercise that we are or aren't doing, the discipline, the plan, while the actual gap, the thing that we're not looking at, remains unaddressed. So today I want to talk about a little bit about what that looks like to actually finally identify the right gap and how to spot potentially where that is in you. so that you can close that gap. So let me tell you about a client that I'm working with at the moment. I found her through a Facebook group. I can't remember which one, like an Esselstyn group, I think. She had posted in a bit of a panic. And honestly, when I read her post, I really understood why. So she was a nurse, is a nurse. She has been whole food plant-based for 5 years or so. So that's 5 years of following this way of eating, following Gregor, following Furman, doing exactly what she's supposed to do. And underneath it, her numbers are just not improving. In fact, they were actually getting worse. So her blood pressure was at stroke level. It was around 220 to 230 over 120. And she said she was on more medications than she'd ever administered to any of her own patients. And that was really concerning to her. Like everything that she had learned about this way of eating was supposed to improve this number. And she'd also been recently diagnosed with diabetic retinopathy, which was concerning her as well. And her diabetes was worsening despite having actually worked with the Mastering Diabetes team for 3 months. And that's like no bones on them. I love those guys. They do such an amazing job. But something was not being addressed. There was a reason why her numbers weren't moving. Her weight also wasn't moving. She couldn't understand why she wasn't able to lose weight this way when everybody else around her seemed to be able to. She was doing everything right, or so she thought in her eyes. So why was her health and her weight not improving? Well, when I read the post that she put into that Facebook group, I just had this feeling, and not about what she was doing wrong per se, but just about areas of her life or habits that she might have had that nobody had probably asked her about yet. And because I work very holistically with my clients, so we work at the level of body, mind, and soul, like it's you are the whole being, and we need to address it all. So we don't just talk about food and nutrition. Yes, what goes on your plate is a huge part of the health and weight loss equation, don't get me wrong. But health is more than what goes on your plate. It is more. And I suspected that there were just some factors in Jenny's life that nobody had asked her about yet. So not her doctors and not the Mastering Diabetes team. So I just invited her to have a conversation, just a quick brief chat in the DMs to see what was going on, to see if I could help. And then I invited her to a call as well so that we could just have a face-to-face and see if we could work this out. And on that call, it started to become extremely clear about what her gap was. So it wasn't her food. Like her food was amazing. She had dialed in the what to eat really, really well. But here's what nobody had actually been asking her about. And that was how she was sleeping and her stress levels. So what we uncovered is that she was sleeping only around 2 hours per night. Her sleep was awful. She could fall asleep okay. Her sleep hygiene leading up to bed was amazing. Like she had very intentional sleep hygiene. But she was waking up again 2 hours later. And she was not able to get back to sleep. She would lie there, tossing and turning, fretting, stressing about everything in her life, stressing about what she had to do. And then she would eventually get up and start her day because she just couldn't get back to sleep. So nobody had actually asked her about her sleep and then connected that to the health outcomes. But sleep has a profound impact on metabolic health. It also has a profound impact on our energy output, like how much we move during the day. When you're tired, right, you don't get up and move your body around a lot during the day. You are more sedentary. So it was having an impact on her energy output and as well as her hunger hormones. And when you are not sleeping at night, your body cannot repair and restore itself, because that's when that restoration and repair actually happen. So my client's body was not getting that window, which meant her metabolic health was not improving. She was actually getting worse. Her diabetes was getting worse. Her blood pressure was getting worse. And it wasn't because of the food that she was eating. It was because of her body's inability to actually properly repair itself at night because she wasn't sleeping. Plus, when it came to her weight loss, poor sleep equals more tiredness, as I said, which equals less movement, less energy out. And then her hunger hormones were dramatically increasing and her fullness hormones were dramatically decreasing. So again, less movement in and more food equals less ability to be able to hit that calorie deficit, which is what is required for weight loss. So that was the first thing we found, there's the poor sleep. The second thing that we identified was stress. And I don't just mean everyday busyness stress, but this is more, significant emotional stress, personal and family relationships that have been upsetting her. And we know what chronic emotional stress does to the human body. Cortisol will rise, and it actually has a very inflammatory reaction in the body if it is always very elevated. And also, if she's not sleeping, then cortisol is flooding her system through the night as well as during the day. So she had this very high cortisol level that was impacting everything in her metabolic system. So it was having an impact on her blood pressure as well as on her diabetes. And combined with that sleep deprivation, her body was in that sustained state of physiological stress, and no amount of good food could override that. And the third thing that we also identified was her eating window. So she was often eating right up until bedtime. She said she needed to feel like she had a very full stomach when she went to bed. So sometimes she was going to bed at 11 o'clock, sometimes midnight. And I want to explain why this matters, because I think this is one of the most underappreciated factors in metabolic health. And I use an analogy called the retail store to describe what's actually happening inside of our body. And once she understood this, she was like, oh my goodness, I see what you mean. So I say, think of your digestive system like a retail store. So during the day, you've got the store open, the retail team is on the floor, they're ready to serve the customers, they're fully equipped to be able to serve all the customers who are coming through the door, and food is the customer. So your digestive organs are the retail team, and your digestive organs are ready to be able to receive the food during the day and process the food, just like a retail store staff are open and ready to receive the customers when they walk in the door. But when evening comes, right, the store closes and the retail team goes home so they can get their rest so they can come back to work tomorrow. And so in the body, the stomach wants to shut up shop. The pancreas wants to go to sleep as well. It wants to stop making insulin overnight. And insulin is our storage hormone. And this is especially pertinent for anybody who might be insulin resistant, because we naturally, even if we don't have diabetes, we become slightly insulin resistant at night because our body just naturally doesn't want to produce as much insulin. And if you have insulin resistance or prediabetes or diabetes, full type 2 diabetes, or any sort of insulin resistant condition at all, this is especially important for you, because you want to support your pancreas's natural circadian rhythm rather than forcing it to try and work at a time when it really doesn't want to work. And so she was eating right up until her bedtime, which meant she was forcing her body to try and cope with all these nutrients coming through, and she was already insulin resistant. So in terms of our digestive system, our day team is like the retail day team, and then overnight, think about a retail store. Some retail stores, not every retail store, but it reminds me of when I used to do retail shopping over in the UK for the job that I was in. And at night, after the stores were closed, we would see the cleanup crew and the visual merchandising crew in there just setting up the store for the next day. And so I liken this to the retail team as well. So you want to think of your liver and your kidneys like the cleanup crew and the visual merchandising crew who come in at night and want to clean and repair so that the store can open looking fresh for the customers the next day. So that's what the liver and kidneys do. They come in, they do the repair and the cleansing work, and everything else gets to rest for the next day. So this is their job, this is their time, and they're very good at it when they're allowed to do it. But can you imagine what would happen if in a retail store you've got the doors still open and the customers still flooding through when there's no retail team there to serve them, and the VM crew and the cleanup crew are trying to do their job. They're trying to clean up, but they're also trying to deal with the customers in the store, but it's not their job to deal with the customers. They don't even have the log on to the till to be able to serve the customers, so there's chaos in the store. And this is what happens when we eat late at night too. Our body and our digestive system, our organs, our hormones are all wanting to work in alignment with our circadian rhythm, the natural rising and falling of the sun. And our digestive force is at its most powerful during the day, not at night. And so when we eat late at night, we start to send our system into chaos. Just like a retail store would be in chaos, if only the cleaning crew were in there without the log on to the tills to be able to serve the customers while they're also trying to clean up the store. And this is what was happening to my client, to her body every single night. She was bringing in food when her digestive system was trying to be in cleanup mode, or her organs were trying to be in cleanup mode, and her already insulin-resistant system was being asked to manage a glucose load at the worst possible time with very little insulin to be able to handle it. And so what would happen is her blood glucose was starting to spike at night, around 2 hours after falling asleep. This is why she was waking up, because her body couldn't handle that glucose load. So it was waking her up, and her body was sending a cortisol signal to go, hey, get up, move. We need to move this stuff out of the system. And that's why she couldn't get back to sleep. So it all started to become very connected, every little piece of it. And this is what nobody else had been able to pick up, because everybody was so zeroed in on their little area of expertise, or their precise area of expertise, but nobody was really sort of zooming out and looking at the whole picture, the whole body, and not just what she was eating, but how she was sleeping, how she was processing stress, how she was handling stress, timing of her food, everything. It all comes together. And so we started making some very targeted changes to her habits. We started with just a little nutritional addition, I will say, to what she was eating, and that was adding in the Esselstyn greens to her protocol. I gave her the Esselstyn greens list, and I said to her, aim for 6 times per day. So this is in order to allow her body to be able to produce nitric oxide. And what she did is she did that for 4 days and 4 times a day only. And she sent me a message saying, oh my God, my blood pressure has come down from 220 to 230 over 120 to around 160 over 100. She messaged me, are you kidding? This is after 4 days. This is after years of it climbing. She could not believe the difference. And so that just made her so convinced that this was necessary for her. So she kept going with it. And then we moved on to her sleep. We started working on her sleep habits and what she was doing when she woke up. So we removed the phone from the bedroom. No more picking up the phone to see if anybody else was online and start scrolling. No more lying there stressing. And I gave her a protocol to be able to bring back that stress level down, stop the brain from overthinking, so that she could get back to sleep. And it was working. She messaged me and goes, oh my God, I got 6 hours sleep. And it was the first time in such a long time. 6 hours was amazing. And then her blood pressure started coming down even further. It came down to 146 over 96, and then 137 over 95. And then we started working on her eating window. Her fasting blood glucose numbers, they started to improve as well. Her sleep improved further as well. Her energy started to increase. Her weight began to move. She said her blood glucose numbers were now sitting, her fasting blood glucose numbers were now sitting at 120 instead of 180 to 200, which had been the norm for such a long time. She said she hadn't seen any number under 140 in over 2 years. And so we are still working on improving the quality of her sleep and the duration of her sleep, because she is still in a bit of that habit of waking up. Her brain still thinks it's necessary to wake her up 2 hours after, but we're working on how she deals with that stress, that symptom of waking up, so that she can train herself to go back to sleep instead of what she had been doing, which is stressing about why she's awake and then keeping herself awake. So not only are we changing the timing of when she's eating, so that should have an impact on her blood glucose when she's asleep. So hopefully she won't be waking up so often, but she's also got tools now to get back to sleep. And as we continue working together, we'll be working through the emotional piece, the stress piece as well, and all of the beliefs and the stories that sit underneath that, because it is our beliefs and our stories and our perceptions of reality that actually drive our stress levels. It's not what's actually happening around us or what other people are doing. It's all directly related to how we're perceiving what is happening. So that's the part that we're going to be working on next. And I say it's like we're not just mopping up the floor and dealing with symptoms, but we're actually getting to the root cause of why those symptoms are there, and we're turning that tap off. And I say this because if my client had just been focusing on trying to make her diet more perfect, what am I missing in my diet? Why isn't the diet working? Which is where she was focused. She would never have found any of this. She would never have actually been focused on the right things to move her results in the right direction, because the food wasn't the gap. The food wasn't the thing that was off. So once we have a more steadied system, we'll say, we've improved blood glucose, improved blood pressure, improved sleep, improved ways that she's dealing with stress and emotions, then we can start getting to what she's eating to support her long-term goal. We can start refining what she's eating. We can start really dialing in those hunger and those fullness cues and making sure that she's not eating just because it's there, or because she feels pressured to, or because she's being driven by emotion. We'll be able to start really dialing in that plate and what she's eating and the reasons why she's eating. But the thing is, if we had started here, we would never have gotten the result that we've gotten so far. We still had to start with what was going to make the biggest impact to her to start with. And I want to tell you a story about somebody else that I spoke to a little while ago. Similar sort of thing. She wanted somebody to give her a meal plan, and it needed to be calorie and macro adjusted for her specific goals, which were building muscle and losing body fat. Now, she wanted to lose around about 20 kilos. And in my mind, if you've got over 10 kilos to lose, then there are probably some other foundations that are not already steady and in place. So I just got curious about where she was at and what was going on for her in her life. And when we talked, something became very clear very quickly. Her food knowledge was excellent, right? And on a good day, she was eating beautifully. So it's not like she needed more food knowledge. It's not like she needed to do anything differently with what she was eating. It all looked amazing. She didn't need direction on what to eat. And in fact, a specific meal plan would not have actually been the gap. And that's what we identified. That was not her gap. The problem for her was what was happening when she was stressed or exhausted or emotional. And this is the exact same thing for so many of my clients as well. It's that there was so much pressure on her during the day. There was work, there was study, there's exercising like a maniac at the gym, there's managing relationships, complex family dynamics. And by the evening time, she could start her day really, really well. And by the evening time, it was all falling apart. Not because she didn't know what to do, but because she was emotionally, mentally, physically exhausted. She was seeing the meal plan as something that would take away the overwhelm and the decision fatigue that she was experiencing at that time of the day. But what we identified is that it didn't matter what was on that plan, because in those moments, it was just that her brain was wanting relief. And there were days where she did actually have food. She knew exactly what she was going to be eating, and she actually had that food prepared. But her brain was choosing relief over sticking to what she had already planned for herself. So this is where things like Uber Eats and having ice cream and the snacks and the chocolate, all of those things become that relief for the brain, because she is emotionally and physically exhausted. So a better meal plan is not the gap. It is learning how to be able to manage those symptoms of high stress and a high emotional load. Learning how to process that depletion at the end of a half day without using food. And as I said, that a meal plan would never have touched the gap. She could have the perfect meal plan, but because she didn't have those skills to be able to manage stress and a depleted nervous system, that plan was never going to be followed anyway. That is the gap. The gap was emotional. It wasn't nutritional. Another client came to me as well. She was already whole food plant-based. She already, very, very knowledgeable about what to eat, but she was 50 pounds overweight and just genuinely very puzzled. I spoke about her, I think it was in last week's podcast. This is Kathy. She knew something was missing. She just didn't know what it was. And she thought that she needed more discipline. She thought that she was going to she said she was going to make a promise to herself that she would not go out to eat on her own. She was only going to go out to eat when she was with company, because she knew that going out to eat was more calorie dense, and she was probably going to have to avoid that. And she was going to have to avoid all the treats that, she enjoyed having. And she wanted to set that as a rule for herself until she hit the first 20 pounds. But what I suggested is that we not necessarily make this a rule, and we learn how to eat out, and we learn how to incorporate some of these treat foods in a way that still helps her to get to the goal. And when we started working together, a few things became extremely apparent. And that was that she had some very unconscious overeating habits that had been running so long that she hadn't even noticed them. They were just so unconscious because she'd been doing them all her life. And one of them was finishing everything on her plate, being a plate cleaner. Now, hands up if you were raised to clean your plate. Hands up if you were told things like, eat everything on your plate because that tells me that you love me. Or eat everything on your plate because we don't waste food around here. Or eat everything on your plate because there are starving kids in Africa. You can't leave the table until you've cleaned your plate. Like, just hands up if you've heard any of those messages. Well, this was true for my client as well. And to her, cleaning the plate was showing her Italian mother how much she really enjoyed that food, and it was showing her love. And so food for her had become about joy. It had become about comfort. It had become about love. But it had also become about overstuffing her little body. And what she realized is that she had never truly experienced hunger because she'd always been overeating. Every plate that she'd eaten was huge, gigantic. And so she never experienced hunger before she got to eat the next meal. And so food was just eaten because it was there. It was eaten because it was in front of her, because it was a treat and that she wanted it, or her brain told her that if she didn't eat it, she might miss out. So her gap, again, was not nutritional knowledge. It was learning more how to be body-led and really relearning her hunger and her fullness cues, becoming body-led instead of brain-led. To experience that hunger without fearing like she's going without food if she feels hunger, and then learning how to stop at comfortably satisfied rather than overly stuffed, which is what her brain had gotten used to in 70-something years. And she had to learn how to trust her body's signals rather than overriding them all the time. And now she has lost that 50 pounds, and it's staying off. Whereas in the past, she could have lost the 50 pounds by restricting herself from going out, from restricting herself from treats, and then she'd get to that 50 pounds down and not know how to eat out or include treats in her life. She messaged me the other day to say that she knows that this has gone for good because she can incorporate going out to dinner, and she's able to incorporate little treats. She simply just asks herself, is she hungry? And she follows those hunger cues. And even if she has had a couple of treats in her diet, she gets back on that scale and the weight is not moving. So she's really learned what is the right amount of food for her body, including some of those treats. She was worried that she would have to restrict herself from all of the joy eating in her life in order to lose that weight, but she didn't. And she learned how to eat out and trust herself. And now that the weight is off, that skill is actually going with her as well. So the weight isn't going to come back on because she's learned that skill of how to have her occasional treat foods and how to eat out. And she simply just asks her body, are you hungry right now? And do you really want that? And often she's hearing the body saying, no, I don't need to eat right now. I'm comfortably satisfied. Thank you very much. And she often hears as well, no, I don't want that food. I've got healthy food. You've got healthy food at home. Feed me that instead. So she's really learning how to be body-led instead of brain-led. And she's learning how to, I guess, train that brain like it's a puppy and have it obey her instead of have it drive her eating. I love that way of thinking about the brain. It's like a little puppy who just needs to be trained. I share these stories because I see something happening a lot in the plant-based weight loss and health space, and that there is so much emphasis on the what to eat for health and weight loss. And yes, as I said, What we eat does have a very dramatic impact on our health. It is the cornerstone of our health, 100%. But if you're not seeing the results that you want and you feel like you're doing everything right with your food, sometimes it's not related to the what you're eating. There is a gap that you're not seeing because you're so close to it. And that can be around your stress levels. It can be around your sleep. It can be around your meal timing. It can be around your relationship with food and why you're eating. It can also be around your brain-led eating instead of body-led eating, i.e. not paying close attention to your hunger and fullness cues. There are so many things that sit in the gap. Belief systems are also one of those gaps as well. You can be doing everything right with your food, but if you have a belief rolling around in the back of your mind that it's not possible for you, you can't do this, you will be missing where you're not putting in 100%. So we've got to find these gaps. And we are not the experts in our own behavior. We cannot be. Our patterns are just so familiar to us that we can't see them. Our blind spots are invisible to us by definition. Most people are not trained in the intersection of nutrition, sleep, stress physiology, emotional health, habits, nervous system regulation, and belief work, all of which can factor into why you may be not getting that result that you want. And when you work with somebody who is across all of these areas and sits down with you and looks at your specific situation, your specific life, your specific habits, your body, your emotional landscape, they can often see within minutes what you might have been unable to see in years of trying. Not because you are unintelligent, it's not because you don't know enough, it's because you're too close to it. And our egos can stop us seeing the very things that they know we need to address to get the results that we want. And why? Because our ego likes the way things are. It's safe, it's comfortable, it's familiar, and our ego is trying to protect us. It's just trying to keep us alive. It also does not want to be wrong. And so the gap between where you are and where you want to be is very, very real, but it's also very closable. And once you can see it clearly, you can change it. You can make the specific changes that are going to help you move towards your goal. But you have to let go of that ego that says, I'm doing everything right and it doesn't work for me. Like, you cannot hold on to beliefs that will keep you stuck. And this is exactly why I've put together a free weight loss audit, which is a conversation between you and me. We go through where you are right now. So we'll be looking at your current habits, your current results. And I'll be saying to you, like, where do you want to be? Like, blue sky, where do you want to be? What do you want your weight to look like? What do you want your health to look like? And then together we're going to start identifying what is actually standing in that gap. What is actually standing in the way of you getting there? And sometimes it might not be exactly what you expected. Oftentimes it's not for people. But whatever it is, the idea is that you come away from that conversation with far greater clarity about what it is that you actually need to focus on in order to move forwards and achieve your goals. Not what some dude on the internet says, not what might have worked for somebody else. What is the low-hanging fruit and in that gap specifically for you? Now, this is a completely free call. There is no obligation, but obviously spots are very limited because I'm one person, so if you want a spot, you better grab it quickly. And it's just a conversation. If you've got that opportunity to have someone who is more holistic, multidisciplinary, looking at your situation with a fresh set of eyes, it can give you such a deep level of insight. So if you are plant-based, or want to be plant-based and you are not getting the results that you want, I'm inviting you to book that call with me. Or if you've been trying to lose weight and you keep hitting that wall, then please book a call with me. If you know what to eat, but something keeps getting in the way of you doing it consistently, then please book a call with me. That link is in the show notes. I've dropped it there for you. Just have a look at that page there. It'll give you a little bit of information on that. And then book that call with me. As I said, spots are limited. So if you do want one, get in quickly. And I would love to sit down with you and help you see what you might not have been able to see yet. And we'll put a plan together to help move you forwards, because the gap is closable. We just have to find it first. We just have to know what's in the way and we have to remove those roadblocks. All right, team. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode has resonated with you today, if any of these stories made you think, I wonder if there's something that I'm not seeing here, then that thought is worth following. Please share this episode with someone who might be doing all of the right things themselves and not getting where they want to go as well, right? They need to hear this message too. Please, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you found this very useful, I would love it if you would just spend 2 minutes and give me a 5-star rating. It genuinely helps more people find this show. So team, I will see you next week. Take amazing care of yourself. Ciao for now.